Good morning. Welcome back to Venture Daily. On today's show, the CEO of Firestorm Labs joins us to discuss the company's $47 million Series A funding round to scale its battlefield-ready 3D printing platform.
And driven, of course, by AI, U.S. startup funding has jumped 75.6% so far in 2025, even as VC fundraising has fallen. We're going to talk the numbers and fill you in. I'm Josiah Simons.
I'm Jackson Fordyce. It's Thursday, July 17th. Let's get you smarter before your first meeting.
All right, before we begin, I have to address the rumors, Jackson. Yes, Venture Daily is chopped.
Oh, it's so over.
97% of our YouTube viewers are not subscribed. What is happening? If you're watching this and you like tech news brought to you by the best in the business, it's time to subscribe, okay? Go down in that little
Smash it.
Smash that subscribe button.
Smash that thing.
Click that like button. Do it right now, okay? Right now. And let's get into the news.
All right, let's get into the news today. Firestorm Labs, the San Diego-based defense tech company specializing in on-site 3D drone manufacturing, has raised $47 million in Series A funding, led by NEA with backing from major defense investors like Lockheed Martin and Booz Allen.
That's right. All right, so we've got some footage here of the Tempest drone in action. This is from Firestorm.
Sick.
Here's some images of it up close in a second here. One, we watched this drone smash into a million pieces. That's cool because it's just cool. All right, here's the specs. So we've got the Tempest drone here. That's going to be a MTOW of 55 pounds, payload capacity 10 pounds, wingspan 7 foot, length 6 foot, configuration dependent range, loitering time, and cruise speed. And then here's the El Nino. All right.
El Nino.
A miniature precision guided system that is hand launchable at under 10 pounds and launch ready in less than 30 seconds. You can pack it into your backpack.
That's crazy.
Here's Dan Magy at a conference last month talking about the 3D printed Firestorm drones and their incredible modularity, and he is the CEO of Firestorm.
I've seen the Tempest before. I've seen videos. It had a propeller.
Yep.
This looks more like a jet engine. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, when we say modular, like we mean modular, right?
Wow,
So
okay.
One SKU that can be like a kamikaze product that flies 150, 200 miles an hour with the turbojet, or you literally click on and click off the propulsion system, and now you have a long-range duration ISR product. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
But Firestorm doesn't just make drones. Their funding will help scale its XL Factor-in-a-Box platform, enabling frontline troops to produce and adapt drones like the Tempest UAS directly in the field. This approach aligns with recent White House directives on accelerating U.S. drone production and reduces reliance on centralized supply chains.
Yeah, so here's another clip from Dan Magy talking about the new XL. So the ability to print drones on the field rather than back at the manufacturing factory is a game changer for the modern battlefield.
$400,000 for a single-use product is unacceptable, right? So we went full modularity first with multiple propulsion systems, and the way in which we can do that is by scaling it with additive manufacturing. The DoD likes it so much, what they've actually done is they've asked us to start putting the 3D printers into 20-foot containers.
Okay.
And so now you have a modular, manufacturing solution that you can set up and deploy anywhere in the world, and start printing drones as ours.
Wow.
The $47 million investment is a major step forward in building a more agile, modular, and resilient defense manufacturing ecosystem. And who better to dive deeper into this story with us than Firestorm CEO himself, Dan Magy.
Yeah, my name is Dan Magy, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Firestorm. We build an arsenal of modular drones, as well as a factory in the box that allows us to basically set up a factory and build our drones, other people's products, and then fix things that break on the battlefield within hours.
So Jackson, we actually got to visit Firestorm last year and sit down with Dan for a conversation about his company. Yeah, you were there. And see the Tempest and the XL up close. So that behind us there is the Tempest drone.
Yep.
And then behind that, you can't see it quite as well, but that is one of the XLs in Firestorm Labs. They showed us how it works. Pretty dope. And here's Dan Magy, talking about his drones.
Oh, look what we're matching.
Yeah, check out Jackson's
Join
hat here.
and fly.
Join and fly. All right. So if you want to check out that, highly encourage y'all. It's on the Demo Day YouTube page. So Demo Day
and
Media
we can link it in the description
on
as
YouTube.
well.
We'll link it in the description. It's titled "How 3D Printing is Transforming Drone Defense." All right, Jackson. What was your first question for Dan?
First question for Dan. Firestorm is building the decentralized factory of the future with deployable XL units. Are we witnessing a shift toward battlefield manufacturing becoming a core part of modern warfare strategy?
Yeah, I mean, we're having more and more conversations about the need for factory at the front. That's what we call it, right? I think the DoD really understands that waiting 6 months for something we can make in a day or two is unacceptable. And so if you're thinking about military readiness and then system availability, these are the phrases we keep hearing again and again and again. It's beyond just scaling to the needs that we're going to need on the drone side of things. It is, how do we use industrial 3D printing closer to the edge? And I think we've done a really good job with our exclusive relationship with HP of showing what the art of the possible is.
Yeah, and speaking of that relationship with HP, it gives Firestorm exclusive rights to key 3D printing tech. And so I asked Dan, is vertical integration now essential for winning the speed and flexibility race in defense manufacturing?
I think yes and no. I think there's some things you got to own and some things you got to be really good at. But if we've learned anything from the war in Ukraine, if and when the flag goes up, it's going to be about the ability to modify the systems you have to get them back in the fight. So there's now been multiple articles about the issues U.S. and NATO drones have faced in Ukraine because Russian jamming is so incredibly extensive that, like, to actually fix the radio, move the radio out, put a new radio in, you almost have to rebuild the entire electrical infrastructure of the drone. And so we've tried to solve that with our system we call Octra, which is both, middleware, SDK/API for folks to do really easy payload integrations, and also a power management system to support that. But I will say this, like, there are some crucial inputs you're always going to need, right, if you want to scale manufacturing. We just think that there is a little bit of a way to do both. And I do believe that's going to be crucial because the numbers of drones that are being used in combat now are so unfathomable for how many we're making. We're making a couple thousand a year as a country. One of my buddies, he owns a Ukrainian drone manufacturing company. They make 20,000 a month. Wow. It's got to be a little bit of both, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, Dan, do we know the numbers of how many drones China is making a month just yet?
They're publicly saying they're ordering millions of loitering munitions, which is quite frightening. But there's lots of footage coming out of them building Baba Yagas, which are the big, like, hex copters, FPVs, quadcopters, fixed wing, you name it. It's quite frightening because they are really good at building things. That's what they've optimized for over the last 40 years.
And my final question for Dan, with backing from NEA, Lockheed, and Booz Allen, and a $100 million DoD contract in hand, how does Firestorm plan to stay agile and innovative while scaling into the heart of the defense industrial base?
We have to be really focused on delivering the contracts we've won right now. That's the number one thing, right? It's really exciting to go chase a lot of bright, shiny objects. We want to keep this really simple and kind of build the arsenal, quote unquote, that we're developing internally, and really be able to scale the XLs from a production standpoint, because that's really proving to be one of the differentiators. It's something every branch of the military has either bought or is inquiring about, and we are fielding tons of requests from overseas because it empowers what we call manufacturing sovereignty, right? If you have the ability to produce things and you can move them around, then you can kind of control your own destiny. And that's the big vision we have here, right? Which is federated/decentralized manufacturing at scale.
Very cool. So one last thing before we move to our next story, I want to show y'all one last clip from the conference in Paris where Dan was actually showing us a 3D printed handheld model of the XL and explains what it will contain inside.
You ship it in 20 foots.
Right.
Right. And then you basically fold down the sides and you can start printing anywhere in the world.
Excellent.
So you have printers and post-processing and processing systems. You have a clean room in here to get the depowdering off. And then you have an assembly area.
Okay.
And so what that means is for contested logistics, which is a huge problem in the Pacific, you now have the ability to localize your manufacturing and even localize your repair. That's been one of the most interesting things for us, right? We started as a drone company, and we're now kind of morphing into a manufacturing company. When we gave an XL recently to some folks in the Army, they ended up fixing 5 or 6 drones that they had with our printers. We fixed part of a Bradley fighting vehicle.
Wow.
We printed something for a howitzer. And then we did a bunch of stuff we can't talk about on camera. But the point is, no one has had industrial grade 3D printing like in a mobile fashion before. And so when you give people the tools, the aperture of what's possible just opens like that.
Yeah, it goes deeper than just drones.
Yeah.
That's actually so sick.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so yeah, they started as a drone company. Now the XL is kind of the product that they have found the most interest from, I think he said, all branches of the U.S. military.
So cool. Thank you to Dan Magy for being on the show today.
All right, Jackson, what do we have next up on the menu?
Yeah, mostly good news for venture capital and a little bit of bad news. U.S. startup funding surged 75.6% in the first half of 2025 to $162.8 billion, according to PitchBook, driven largely by massive AI investments that made up over 64% of total deal value.
Yeah, so
look at the data. It's clear.
Here's the data. Just for the viewer at home, sorry, this should be a chart or a graph. It's not. I searched high and low around the internet to find PitchBook's data and their report on this. I could not find it anywhere. This is a Reuters article. Every single article that I found online about this is just a rewritten version of the Reuters article. I don't know where they got the info, but I believe it's real because Reuters is trustworthy. So, bear with. We're just going to look at some words on the screen. All right. So that's the strongest performance since 2021 and puts this year on track for venture capital's second best year ever. Wow. So while startups are booming, however, venture capital firms are struggling to raise new funds, with fundraising down 33%. Year over year, and timelines to close funds hitting decade-long highs.
And despite the funding gap, exit activity jumped 40% in Q2, fueling optimism for a wave of IPOs and M&A in the second half of the year.
Yeah, and AI, defense tech, fintech, crypto, these are the sectors that we've seen aligning with Trump's priorities. Our favorites that we talk about on the show all the time. So these are drawing the most interest as the market shows good signs of rebounding.
Yes, and for a deeper look into this story, I called Elliott Parker.
I'm Elliott Parker, founder and CEO of a firm called Alloy Partners.
For my first question for Elliott, I asked, startup funding is up 75% this year, but VC fundraising, it's down nearly 34%. Are we in a new era where big tech and corporate capital dominate early stage investing?
I think we're in a moment of uncertainty is what's going on. It's probably too early to say that it's a new era. It might be. We might look back on this moment and realize it was the beginning of a new era. But yeah, in our business, what we do see is corporations trying to use their balance sheets a little more creatively to drive innovation. A lot of their internal innovation efforts have failed over the years or not driven the results that they wanted. They're looking to external startups, whether they're doing that through CVC or just off their balance sheet, much more active in investments, and an intriguing source of capital for startups that are trying to make it.
Yeah, with AI now accounting for over 60% of deal value, I wanted to ask Elliott, is VC becoming dangerously one-dimensional, or is this just the natural gravity of the next platform shift?
I think it's the latter. It's obviously a foundational technology shift and where investment needs to be going right now. The technology opens up, more importantly, questions about the role of VC in this at all. I mean, we're all seeing these solopreneur companies launch. The last several companies we've launched, the CEOs all tell us they're never planning to hire more than 4 or 5 people. It's a shift. And how VC adapts to play the game is kind of up in the air. A lot of people trying different approaches, running experiments right now.
Multi-billion-dollar rounds for companies like OpenAI, Scale, and Anduril show investor confidence. But does that enthusiasm trickle down to earlier stage startups or just inflate the unicorn tier?
Yeah, I think that's a correct perception. We're seeing everybody is looking at this. Is this a barbell type of moment where you're seeing capital kind of go to the ends of the barbell? Again, we don't know. I do think you're going to see that capital concentration in the big winners. A lot of these plays are winner-take-all types of opportunities around AI, and we'll see that happen. And I think a lot of the smaller things just don't need as much capital to get going and get the traction they need. I think we've got to rethink fundamental ways of building, launching, scaling those companies at the other end of the barbell and funding those companies.
Right. And for my last question for Elliott, I asked, with IPOs rebounding and sectors like defense tech, crypto, and AI leading the way, are we watching the Trump administration's industrial priorities reshape the venture exit landscape in real time?
That is a very good question. Again, one where there's just a lot of uncertainty right now. In our role, we're kind of straddling between these large corporations, including many industrials and startups. And what we see is just a lot of uncertainty. And at the level of the corporations, that uncertainty is leading to a bit of paralysis. Back in January, a lot of companies were gung-ho on the year ahead, planning to make investments. By mid-February, had decided maybe it was time to wait and see what happens before they make those investments. Absolutely the wrong strategy in a moment like this. Change creates opportunity, and the companies that are going to win, existing corporations that are going to win in this moment, are the ones that are willing to go against the grain and make bets amid the uncertainty.
Thank you to Elliott Parker for being on the show today.
All right, that's it for Venture Daily. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope we helped you get a little bit smarter today. And like I said at the start, if you made it all the way to the end, subscribe, like, and since you made it to the end, why not comment?
Why not
comment?
Yes, and thank you to Content Stack for letting us film here every single day in Austin, Texas. Shout out the Content Stack mug.
Every day.
Death, taxes, and Content Stack mug. If you like today's show, whether on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or X, leave us a like, a comment, and a review. Throw us a 5-star rating if you think we earned it. And as always, we'll see you here tomorrow morning at Venture Daily.